Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President, Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training Japan. My special guest today is Alejandro Espada, who is the General Manager of Faurecia Interiors here in Japan. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thanks a lot.
So give us the backstory here. Faurecia is a mobility company. How is it that you're here in Japan running the operation? How did you get here? What has been the backstory for you?
The backstory should start maybe 15, 16 years ago. At that time, I was entering in the mobility, in the automotive field, let's say. And for various reasons, I thought Asia was meant to be the future.
And when you're entering the business, the industry, was that in Europe? Where were you at that time?
Yeah, I was in Europe. Yeah.
And you were in Spain, or where were you at that time?
In that moment, when I came to Asia for the first time, I was in Spain. You're right.
Okay, right.
I was coming back from France, in which I was working as in something completely different, which was water engineering.
Oh, so a natural movement from water engineering to mobility. Yes, good.
Both things is something I'm passionate about, so it could make sense. Anyway, it was very clear for me from the very beginning. When I say very beginning, means when I was studying, when I was, a very long time ago, it was clear that Asia was the next step. Why I'm saying that? Because North America was taking already a leader position in the world market since quite long already. There were too many people who were already familiar to how to have business with USA, with North American fellows. But there was this gravity movement towards Asia, of course led by China, but not only, right? And there were not enough people really used or trained or familiar with what is it to do business with Vietnam, Thailand, South Korea, China, or Japan, right? So for me, I saw this strategic move. I thought, okay, I want to be one of these generations of Westerners that we do understand how Asia, with all the complexity and the difference among them, they think, they work, and how to bridge, the West and the East. That was, let's say, my romantic professional ambition at the time.
Sounds like a pretty smart idea. I mean, Asia's become the engine of the world economically, so you're backing the right horse there, so to speak. So what do you do? Where do you go?
So I started this strategic, romantic move. I started in South Korea directly. Then I did South Korea.
So did you get yourself a job in Europe first and they sent you to South Korea, or where did you kick it off?
Everything I'm talking about, let's say all my Asia experience is with the same group, which is now called Faurecia. Back in the days, it was called Faurecia. The new name is very fresh. It's because of the merger of Faurecia and Hella in this new mega group called Faurecia. But it was everything in automobile business, in mobility.
So when you joined them, you said, by the way, send me to Asia. Is that the idea?
Yeah, pretty much.
And they said, good, we've got someone who wants to go.
It took me a while, because first I needed to show that I was good enough. But soon enough, I was already declaring my intentions. And I was lucky enough to be part of a group that enhanced that appreciates that, the willingness to be mobile. Not only is because of the mobility industry, but as a professional, and therefore they appreciated my attitude, let's say, and they started looking for opportunities for me.
And South Korea came up. So when you went to South Korea, what were you doing there?
So South Korea came up. It was something that I could not have thought about in the very beginning, because we are talking about 2007. Can you imagine? 2007, South Korea was not, by far, not known as it is today. We haven't gone through all this Gangnam style move and the K-pop and all these things that made Korea very familiar to us. But at that time, it was a very unknown country. And Renault had invested a lot into buying the automotive part of Samsung. Many people they don't know, but Samsung at some point in time they decided to make cars. And then after the financial crisis in 2000, for various reasons, they sold that to Renault Group. So I found myself with the opportunity with these new programs we had through Renault, but Samsung branded, to build a team in South Korea because we didn't have a structure there. And
so you actually were starting the operation up in Korea from zero?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So not many people at the time, as you can imagine, in France or Spain. So the group is a French group. So not many people at the time they had the willingness to go suddenly to South Korea, which was it seemed to be like a very bold move. I was excited. For me, it was fantastic. I was like, okay, let's make it happen. And the second reason why I didn't hesitate is because exactly what you described, because it was starting from scratch. Not only the operations they come after, it was the development of the new program, creating a design and engineering office from scratch. So I remember arriving to the office without chairs, without tables, and say, okay, this is going to be the place.
You know,
not myself. So we were 5 expats, 5 foreigners arriving under the leadership of a very, very powerful guy at that time. And we covered the main functions: engineering, quality, manufacturing, and all the topics. So at that time, I was in quality. At that
quality
time.
area.
I was taking responsibility on everything related to quality on this new structure. And that's how it started. South Korea was tough, but it was extremely rewarding.
So you had to recruit the Korean team into the company.
Yes.
What was that like?
I was. You have to realize it was my very first experience in Asia, and it was an Asian country that it was still not very connected to the West. So the gap was impressive. First, because I was not ready as I am supposed to be now. Second, because also the country was not that integrated in the rest of the world. So it was fascinating. It was the whole learning process happened. Let's say 70% of what I learned, I think, is coming from that period of time.
Because in Japan, often it's hard to recruit people because they want to work for the big Japanese corporations rather than foreign corporations. How about Korea? Was it the other way around? Were Koreans excited to work for foreign international companies? They saw that as a step up, maybe a little bit more flexible than the Japanese? I don't know. I haven't tried to recruit anybody in Korea, so I have no knowledge.
It's a very good question. It happens a bit of the same, as you can imagine. Okay. The main mega Korean companies, they have the brand, they have the leverage. So we need to accept that. We are not known. However, same as in Japan, what happened is there are a niche, let's call it, of professionals that somehow they have a more international mindset and they don't feel fitting perfectly the very traditional Korean or Japanese business scheme. So those guys are the guys that they're looking for companies like us. And
probably speaking better English maybe than Japan.
That's part
my
of
experience with Koreans,
that's part
maybe it's the American connection, after the Korean War, etc. But they seem to be just more capable in the English.
I mean, this niche of people, they speak a good level of English, they have stronger leadership skills, so they also fit naturally better with us. So it's kind of a win-win, let's say. The only difficulty is we are tapping in a small part of the population. So it's still hard to find the right talent, but there's a fit. Same in Japan, I would say. I mean, there are people who are looking for this kind of international companies that theoretically we are able to speed up their career development compared to the traditional Japanese organizations that you know.
So how long did you spend in Korea?
3 years and a half.
3.5,
And I was sad to leave. I was very happy there,
And where do you go from there?
From there, I spent some time in China, in Shanghai. Then I moved back to headquarters in Paris. and then I came to Thailand.
Mm.
Thailand, working with Thailand, a bit of Vietnam, but mainly Thailand, and from Thailand to Japan.
Okay.
And this is the whole.
Okay.
So let's say I'm familiar with many of the key countries in Asia, at least related to auto.
And all totally different. Vietnam,
Yes,
China,
yes.
Korea, Thailand. I mean, just, Asia, but totally specifically different too.
They're very different, but it's also fair to say they share a common thread.
Some threads, yeah. Some threads.
Definitely.
So when you arrive in Japan, the organization's already here in Japan when you arrived?
Yes,
So
that's
it's already
correct.
existing. It'd been here for how long before you got here?
I would say, it's difficult to make a line, but let's say 10 years. But it was existing as a sales engineering office to support the programs that they are developed
Right,
outside.
right.
So when I arrived here, I arrived with very clear instruction to transform that into a profit center that has its own operations, and to maximize the development of business with Japanese OEMs.
Okay.
Yeah, Japanese OEMs are very strong.
Yeah.
They are very well fed, but by very professional companies. So it was the missing point. Let's say we are very strong with American customers, extremely strong with European customers, but quite strong with China because we arrived long time ago.
Right.
But Japan customers was kind of the let's call it the pending task, the missing homework. So it was the right moment to accelerate that.
And did you come in as president? What level did you come in at?
No. In the beginning, it was very interesting. In the beginning, the person who brought me, it was the president of the organization in Japan, and the managing director of interiors in particular. He was also responsible of Asia Pacific.
So are you coming from the Faurecia side, and he's the interiors, and they had the merger, so it's Faurecia?
No, interiors was part of Faurecia.
It was already part.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So this person brought me here in the beginning. Something I didn't say is in my background, if you analyze my background, I've been changing not only country, I've been changing function.
Okay.
It was part of a, let's call it, strategic career approach to diversify my competence. So at some point,
chosen by yourself or chosen by the company to diversify?
It's always a combination of both, right?
Okay.
It's always a mix between what you desire to develop and what is the company needs, no? And it has to be this way, right, to make it work. So I had those experience in operations, in program
Quality.
development, in quality, in sales. And at some point I wanted to go more into the innovation part, right? So the group was developing this fantastic thing called Cockpit of the Future, which was how to anticipate the interior of the vehicles, how it will be in the middle term. We're not talking about 5 years from now, 10 and 20 years from now. We were all aware that we were in the middle of a transformation in the industry. Mobility was becoming something else than just vehicles, and your capacity to develop this user experience inside the vehicle it was becoming one of the main purchasing factors. Before, back in the days when you and me we were buying a car, probably the engine is one of the first things we check, the power, and now it's not anymore that case. Now it's more like the connectivity inside the vehicle. How do you feel? How comfortable you are? How safe you feel, etc., etc. So my group decided to create a specific department to analyze the long-term trends and to prepare all the innovations in what we will need farther away. And that became a very interesting topic for all the Japanese car makers, because we are all sharing the same threat.
Right. Where do we go?
Some of us, we are going to die. Some of us, we're going to survive in better conditions. And we knew the interiors would define part of this battle. So when I came responsible of that part, Cockpit of the Future in Japan. There was one near Silicon Valley. In North America, there was Paris, of course, Shanghai, and Japan. There were 4 centers.
4 centers, yeah.
And I was taking responsibility of Japan.
And so when you got here, was there an existing team you took over, or did you have to recruit a team?
So it's half and half. So I arrived here a few months later. The person who brought me here left the company, so that gave me the opportunity to take over the position of head of Japan for interiors.
Oh, wow.
It came
quickly. How many months?
Yeah, it was quite quickly, in fact. I was less than 1 year. Yeah,
less than a year. So you just arrived. You've never worked in Japan before. You've been in Korea. It's not that similar, maybe?
It's not the same, but why I came here is because in Thailand, 5 years in Thailand, I was responsible for Japanese customers in Thailand.
Ah, okay.
So winning the programs, developing the programs for Japanese customers. So I was quite experienced already, not only in Asia, but concretely with Japanese. And that gave me the position to came here afterwards. And I came purely on this Copy to the Future fantastic thing, and then I took over the whole organization. And to answer to your question, from that point, we've been very successful. So we've been almost recruiting almost twice the team. Yeah.
So how many years have you been in this position now?
5 years.
5 years, right? Okay. So when you come and you're doing the Cockpit of the Future, you've got a team. So this is your first occasion, I guess, to manage a Japanese team. You've managed Koreans, Chinese, Thais, etc. Trips to Vietnam, I suppose. So what was challenging about managing that Japanese team? Because I think Japan is different to everywhere else, but in many ways similar, but there's still, yes, the fundamentals are similar, but actually on the ground, in reality, there are the differences. So what was your experience with managing that Japanese team? What stands out for you?
I'm trying not to give you the very basic cliches that you already know. So
I know them, but my viewers and audience may not know them. So keep that in mind.
So first, a story I usually tell. When I arrived, I was extremely happy to working with Japanese because I was coming from Thailand, which is fantastic working with Thai people. I kind of miss them a lot now, but putting pressure on the teams is extremely difficult in Thailand. They have this conception of life in which nothing, what we are doing, is never as important as the fundamental things in life. So, and if you put too much pressure, they are not ready to accept it. You might lose people. So it was difficult not to put things in motion at the right speed sometimes. You need to use another skills that we can talk about maybe in another slot. When I arrived to Japan, it was exactly the opposite. In Japan, you push a button, you set a direction, and suddenly this is kind of Japanese reliability and accountability that is top of the chart. No, the people start to deliver, and I even didn't need to monitor them. They will come in, in the due date with the. I was thinking this is too easy to be true. Exactly. So I was in the beginning extremely happy with that change, but then what you discover later on is the drawbacks is very difficult to read. Japanese people, so it's very difficult to anticipate when something is going wrong. So you are kind of blind when you just arrive to Japan, and you need to very quickly develop the skills to read through the lines set through a minimum of all the. So we are not ready for that in the very beginning. So there is a lot of information missing. So which in other countries that information is much more obvious. So here is you need that time to. That was the difficult thing. The difficult thing is also the over-reporting. They come back to you explaining what they have done. Very process-oriented. Japan is very process-oriented. I'm here to do what the process. The result it will be as a consequence. So that's very time-consuming when the team is growing, because they come to you for every single decision sometimes. So it took me a while to put that level of responsibility back to them, but in a way that they don't feel oppressed with. It has to be more like a common understanding, not a trustful relation. So there are some things that they were difficult. I had to be everywhere in the beginning. It was exhausting, everywhere, because every decision goes back to you, and you are in endless meetings.
I guess from a Japanese point of view, you're new, you're the boss. They don't know your style, they don't know your personality so well, and so I guess they're thinking, I don't want to make a mistake, I don't want to do the wrong thing, I better just check everything with Alejandro and make sure that he gives his seal of approval. So if there's any problems, it's his responsibility,
exactly.
not mine. So let me just push everything up to you, which, as you say, is very time-consuming and demanding. So how did you manage to make that transition from you are the source of all decision-making to be able to push it down? Do they actually have to make some decisions and take responsibility and accountability for the decision they make? How did you make that transition?
The fair answer would be, I don't know. No, meaning it's a very soft process. No, it's not. I wish I could bring here to your audience a very clear tip. But like everything in Japan, is a relation you build. So at some point in time, you cannot do it drastically in the beginning, but at some point in time, step by step, you keep on showing them, you don't need me for this decision. I'm not helping you here. I'm not bringing any value. So you decided, I will always support you, So it takes some time until they realize it's true. It's like, I made a mistake, but Alex, in front of whoever, he will put he will take ownership of the mistake. So when they understand this modus operandi, it's like, I will be there to cover the mistakes if everything happened, but I need you to make the decisions, And then they understand how the machine works, and then they start to lose the map and go.
What were some other challenges in the beginning, very, very first stage, when you're discovering how Japan actually works is a bit different to how everyone else works, perhaps? What are some other things you noticed?
Another things very tough for me was the very slow decision-making process. You find yourselves at all levels. We are not talking only about the team. We are talking about your customer, your suppliers, your business partners. Sometimes in meetings where, from your perspective, there is enough information to make a decision right now, and we kind of all know what is the right decision to make, but somehow the decision is not made, and it keeps on pushed to another meeting, right? That was extremely hard in the beginning.
So why is that? Why is it so difficult to make a decision? In a Western context, okay, meeting set, either internal or with clients, you turn up, you have a discussion, you have a debate, you questions and answers, Okay, we make a decision, we go. That's how we do it. But obviously they're not working off that plan. Something else is going on. What's the thing that's going on here? Why is it taking so long? Why is it so hard for them to make a decision, do you think?
There are several factors. First one, something I didn't know in the beginning, is these pre-alignments that you need to take care of before the decision-making meeting is happening.
So pre-alignment means who? Who needs to be aligned?
Everybody who is meant to make the decision there in a transparent manner.
All the stakeholders, then, in other words.
Yes, let's call it stakeholders. So now when you work in Japan, you need to spend a fair amount of time before pre-aligning with them, understanding what is their fears. But there is so much about this Japanese politesse, kindness, in which the hard topics will not be brought to the table in front of everybody. So you need to find them first.
And can you get access to that? Because often, you meet somebody from the company, your appropriate person, and they are the ones who are coordinating internally. So often, as the external person, you never even get to meet those stakeholders. They're literally behind that wall in their office. So you're in the meeting room, they're behind the wall over there. You never even get to see them. But were you able to actually access those people so you could find out their concerns and deal with any issues they had, so take out all the problems, and then you get to the meeting and it's all smooth? Were you able to do that, or did you have to work through someone to get to them?
What I do, I developed a governance with my key team leaders.
On the client side, you mean? Or your side?
No, in the team, in my team.
Your team, okay, right.
So in everybody's teams, there are like a key contributors, like we can call it I don't know, whatever you want, functional leader. So I spent, let's say, a lot of time. I create a lot of window time on a one-to-one basis. At least once per week, one-to-one safety space for a frank conversation. What's going on? Why this decision is not made yet? So their job would be to compile, to understand what's going on, and then in this one-to-one, I get to understand. Okay, then depending on what is the roadblock, either I will go in directly, or either we will decide together how to. The main message here is we cannot expect in a Japanese society that in the meeting. Let me go back 1 second. In our culture, we organize the meeting to put on the table everything, pros and cons, and to quickly make a decision, okay? And even to fight to each other in a very transparent manner until we reach a conclusion. That's the purpose of the meeting. It doesn't work this way in Japan, as you know. It will not happen. People will not throw or will not fight in front of everybody to each other. They will not throw on the table things that they are not meant to be there. They will keep control of their harmony. No? They will. So if you want an effective meeting, you have no choice, whether you like it or not, you have no choice than spending the needed time before the meeting to make sure what are the roadblocks and to make sure that the person who is holding the roadblock understands your solution for that and then feels confident enough to support the idea in the meeting. So this is something very obvious that when you don't know it, you obviously keep on running meetings that they are not effective because the decisions are not made, because there are roadblocks invisible, and at the end it's very frustrating for the Westerners that they are not familiar with this culture and they say, what's going on? So you need to learn, sometimes understand something is not well there.
Does your team educate you on this because they realize you've been in Asia, but you haven't, had this problem in Japan before? So do they sort of say to you, hey, Alex, now this is why we're getting nowhere in this meeting, and what you're trying to do ain't going to work, buddy, because that isn't how we do it here. You need to do it this way. Or do they not say that to you because you're the boss and it's not their role to tell you? They are there to take orders from you. How did that work? Do they help educate you, or did you have to work it out yourself, or how did that work?
Excellent question. Yeah, excellent question. I will tell you. I mean, for me, it was obviously easier because I spent a fair amount of time in Asia before arriving to Japan. And even though we said every country is different, this is one of the things I think is familiar to each one of them. Different degrees. In Japan, everything is stretched to the limit. But in Thailand as well, people will take care of this harmony that we said. To answer to your question, this is fundamental for me. We are foreigners running business in a foreign land. So we need to place ourselves as what we are. And to answer to your question, I identified in my team very senior Japanese team members, a good representation of what is a Japanese executive in Japan, let's say not contaminated by global international experiences, very Japanese. And I clearly asked them, I need your help. This is your country, this is your culture, you need to navigate me. So I count on you because otherwise we'll not be successful as a team, right? So help me with that. And reminding them about that. How was the meeting? Do you think it was too strong, my position? Do you think I was kind of forcing them to feel comfortable to give me feedback to a point that now I don't need to pull it, it comes naturally. Alex, be careful with that. And when we meet these people, maybe you should talk about this or you should soften it in this way. Perfect. So they are my allies, in this. Without them,
like a good sounding board for you to test ideas and concepts. So
especially now obviously 5 years, I don't need it that much. No. But in that moment, it was extremely precious to create this bond with your teams and to understand I'm here to help you guys to run the business. Yeah?
So how many people in the organization when you took over as general manager?
So direct reports maybe was about 30, and but then
30 direct reports.
not direct reports. I mean
30 in your team directly.
Yeah. But
reporting to you.
and then you have this worldwide Japanese business organizations that they are not reporting to you, but somehow you are working with them.
Sort of matrixed
Exactly.
Organization. Okay.
Which I cannot even remember the number.
It's going to be a big
Now
number,
we double. Now we are like 60, and Japan it increased through the mergers I mentioned before. So it's
getting bigger all the time. So, as a leader, what have you found in Japan, at least, worked well to get the team feeling engaged, to get them really working well? What things have you tried to get people engaged? There's different ways of doing it. What things have you tried? What have you found work well?
Yeah, it's a very wide question. Yeah. In my experience, probably it's different. In my experience, it was not difficult because the plan, the vision, the strategy we had here was a beautiful one. Is arriving to a place in which you are not significant, but suddenly you have the opportunity through the innovation we were promoting, through this very strong transformation in the market, like, hey, we become valuable for our customers, so we can say there's like a tipping point, right? We can, so talking to Japanese professionals that, hey, we are going to create a factory from scratch. We are going to run operations for the first time in Japan for local customers. We are going to be considered like a real domestic business partner. We are going to duplicate the turnover worldwide thanks to us, and it's not such a big team. We cannot do all this. This is for a Japanese perspective, is they understand what they are doing, and they understand what we are going to accomplish, and they understand that maybe the sons and the daughters in the future will be able to be part of that dream. No? So in my experience, they connected to that plan, and the energy was fantastic. I mean,
so there's a fair bit of sales of the concepts and the ideas to get the buy-in by you as a leader, because I'm guessing it's not a command, it's a persuasion. You've got to get people's hearts and minds behind this direction, which actually it's a future direction. So we're not there yet, but this is what's coming. But I guess by getting the organization to commit the money to have a factory in Japan from scratch, to do all the things to make you highly competitive, shows the company's serious, they're supporting us. Alex is leading this. That's all very plus. But what did you find useful in terms of selling the emotional part of this, not just the logical part? Like using storytelling. What sort of persuasion techniques were you using? Were you doing this in town halls? Were you doing it one-on-one? Were you doing it over lunches? How did you sell that story? It's a future story, really. You're talking multi-generations. You're talking to them about their grandchildren going to be having a job here type of thing, or a better job. What techniques did you use to do that?
So the first one coming to my mind was, you just mentioned it, as we are talking about the vision and the strategy, information is key. How to keep them seeing what you are seeing. No? So personally, I started every quarterly. We have like a big town hall, which we put absolutely everybody together, and we go through very visual documentation, but not talking about numbers and whatever. It's like, look, guys, where are we? Where are we going to be? What is the strategy? Where we are going to open a plant? But you are talking to everybody. So forcing a time for questions, making them feel part of this plan, And there is this kind of very strong rewarding process. No, in every town hall, I have one picture for at least every month. I have like a one image of what happened that time. No, it can be two, can be three, but at least at very minimum one thing. Look what we achieved here in March. No, in which they see the picture, they see themselves. It can be the first prototype built in Japan. And you see the group who was building the prototype. No, and then it can be the last program award. Now last week we were in Yokohama, and we were in Yokohama Pacifico. We had a very beautiful booth with a display of all our technology. So it was with many people coming. It was a beautiful picture as well. So showing them, look, what you are doing is being transformed into these drops, and where we headed is there, and repeating it every time you have an opportunity, putting the people together, and at some point, this is they see it, they understand it, they say they want to be part of it.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. You talked before about in the town hall, making, you said actually, I think you used the term forcing time for questions, right? Often in Japan, there are no questions.
Yeah, good point.
And people come in from outside and they think, okay, I have a presentation, now we have time for questions, and it's like nothing, And at first that's a bit disconcerting, like, oh, there are no questions, what's the problem here, So how have you gotten around that problem? How did you get around the thing from here we go for questions and there's nothing to actually getting questions? How did you manage that?
I have a trick.
A trick, very good. Share the trick.
I don't know.
We love that. We love.
I don't know if I want to share it here. I have a hidden trick, but I guess I'm gonna tell you because I guess most of them they already know. But what is difficult is to start. Nobody wants to be exposed, especially with sensitive topics. So to be very honest with you, we all have in our teams 2-3 people we trust very much, we are comfortable enough, and clearly these guys they bring some questions as a starter. So
this is called a sakura in Japanese. Sakura. In English we'd call it like a plant in the audience. You put someone designated. You ask a question, get this thing going before you do the thing, right? In Japanese they call it sakura. So I have the same phenomenon here too.
So in every town hall that I'm supposed to know which are the topics that people is worried about. Okay, so if I don't know, I cannot help. But if I know the topics, at least I will make sure one of my guys will ask something about it, and then a second question happened, third question happened. At some point, you run out of the pre-prepared questions, which, by the way, they are pre-prepared, but they are also bringing information to the people. I mean, they are very meaningful questions for them. But then at that time, that will trigger. Then the people will feel less embarrassed, and then, okay, me too, I can do it. And then, based on my answer, maybe they will come and say, it's not good enough, this and that. And so far, it works very well. A couple of times that I was having trouble, I solved it by saying, 3 questions. We need 3 questions or we will not stop the meeting. So we will not close the town hall.
We keep going till I get 3 questions.
I will wait.
We'll sit here for an hour. It doesn't matter to me.
So that makes them laugh a little bit. And then if I keep on saying, I'm telling you, 3 or we don't close. So somebody help us here to. So that also that will work.
I'll reciprocate with your hint there on how to do it with another one for you. If you probably may be doing this already, but probably smaller groups, it probably works better. But instead of asking people, who has a question, you say, okay, please write down a question about this topic. And then you give them a couple of minutes. So instead of saying, well, what's your question or what's your idea? Same for idea generation. What's your idea or what's your question? You just ask them, what did you write down? And that small change, it takes the pressure of, I've got a question or I've got to have an idea to, well, I had a couple of minutes to write something down. I did write something down, so I'm just telling you what I wrote down. And that somehow in Japan seems to take a lot of the pressure off, and they will tell you what they wrote down. But if you ask people, what do you think? Panic, or I don't want to tell what I think because people might think I'm stupid, or it might be a bad idea, or I might be revealed as being a dope or something. What did you write down? Oh, I wrote down this. Amazingly different. Anyway, that's
I like it
reciprocation,
very much.
seeing you shared your special secret technique with us, so I have to reciprocate.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so, in terms of other things you worked well for engagement, like, for example, do you go away together as a team? Do you have offsites? Do you go and play soccer together? Do you go out drinking together? I mean, other things you found work well in Japan for engaging the team, getting them together?
Yeah, it's fundamental to organize enough events to put a team together. I wouldn't be able to know how many, but what I can tell you for sure is due to COVID, we had to stop
all that, right?
All of that, and I can feel it. I can feel the impact in the team, and probably this is a worldwide issue, but mainly in Japan, it's more noticeable.
Are people still working remotely in the company, or are they back in the office?
Partially.
Partially.
Partially. To be very frank with you, when I arrived to this position, one of the things I proposed human resources we should do is to flexibilize. People working with home when they need. They work. This
is before COVID.
Before COVID.
You're already thinking about that.
And I remember the reaction at that time from each other was like, no, but we already have flex time and it's too much, what you're asking, because then I was thinking it's something we can provide that will make us more competitive, better than other employers. And honestly, we are so much a result-oriented company that I don't see the difference. At the end, we have all this governance in place, so it doesn't really matter where is the work done, right? So for me, it didn't make sense. But I understood, again, we have to be extremely respectful. They are Japanese, they know better. So I'm very happy to see that COVID came and proved my point.
Suddenly.
Because now nobody dares to challenge me on it. I think there is some efficiency that is working better, just letting the people... of course, it has to be in a range, minimum 50% of the time in the office, minimum. And then it depends on the function, it depends on the person, it goes to 90, 100%, or it remains 50. But I think it works better than before.
And you mentioned before about the teamwork, right? And I suppose, like a lot of companies, people notice that the isolation of people working from home, Japan is a very group-oriented society, and then you break up the group and they become little satellites, working from home or some off-site somewhere. Did you notice that there was a change in the fabric of the teamwork, that this is something now you need to rebuild the teamwork? And maybe this comes back to that whole thing about, creating opportunities for people to get together. Like, for example, here in May, I said, right, we're all back. I went through should I do it 1 day a week? Do I do it 2 days a week? Do I do it 3 days a week? Many people are doing 3 days a week. I said, No. I want everyone back together, and I want to see chatting. I want to see laughter. I want to see people having lunch together. I want to see that fabric of the group re-stitched together, because for 3 years we've been totally working from home, because we can deliver our training online. We couldn't deliver it in the classroom next door because no one's going to come because it's COVID, so everything was online. But I worried that the teamwork, the fabric of the teamwork was being impacted, and not everyone was happy to come back, to be honest. Not everyone was happy, but I thought, well, I'd rather sacrifice some unhappiness for the teamwork rebuild. And I can say after a month, it's only a month, but I do feel something's changed here for the better. Again, there's some people who would prefer to be at home. I can't deny that. But anyway, what do you think about the teamwork aspect after post-COVID?
No, it's you said it very well. There are consequences. How do you call it? The bond of the team is not the same as before. Fully agreeing with you. I haven't recovered it yet, to be very honest with you. I'm still working on that. However, I don't want to go back to the mandatory 5 days per week, because I personally don't trust in that even before COVID-19. So some of the people, I mean, most of us, we realize how much more effective our lives, because you can really personal and professional balance it better when you don't need to spend. The other reason is Japanese people, they work hard by nature, long hours. So having then the opportunity to remove the commuting from that equation and spending some time, I think it's something not to be touched. But fully agree with you, I'm still paying the price of the inertia of COVID plus not this full on that. I hope we'll come back. One of the things I'm doing, to tell you very clearly, we have several offices because of proximity to the customer, because we are B2B. So something I'm realizing now is if we were all in the same office, it would be much better, because this phenomenon of restricting the team will be natural. So there are many considerations how to rebuild that bond. The location will be one of them, but I'm exercising higher pressure on HR than before. Like, we have to have more events, more town halls outside, bringing. So this is what we are trying to do. But fully agree with you, there is something lost. I agree. And maybe we should go to these 4 days, to rebuild it. But I don't want to lose that flex. Again, it's our competitive advantage also. Some people only for that will choose us compared to another company. So that's something to play with.
And what about, one of the key things is innovation in business. And I don't mean specialist scientists, R&D people. That's their work. I'm talking about just the normal worker. They have different functional roles. But in terms of getting creativity or innovation or new ideas from the team, what things have you found works well?
Mixing the teams with Europeans, in my case, Westerners. In my case, it's easier because the innovation centers are mainly, in headquarters nearby. So I need to work with North America and Europe very often on that. So naturally, the teams are mixed. So there is always the daring people and the pushers, and things move. And then my strategy is I get the push from those personalities, and we use our teams here to filter which innovation is well connected to our customer, which one our customer has more appetite about and really wants to. That's the best answer I can tell you, because developing creativity from scratch in Japan is something I didn't need to do yet. So I'm not something I don't master yet. Yeah.
I guess there's sort of macro innovation in terms of cockpit of the future, really industry's changing, transforming, we're moving with that. And then there's also just simple things like people coming up with ideas on how we're structured or how things move through the organization or how we make decisions or things we could have to speed up things or improve things. That's sort of minor things in the big scheme of things, but it shows a commitment. It shows I'm interested in making things work better here. I've got an idea. I want to put that idea forward. Getting people to come to you with that type of ideas, like just before your meeting, I had a meeting with one of my team and she's coming to me with some ideas. From her side, I didn't request it. She's bringing it up. That to have that freedom for her to say, I'm going to talk to my boss about this idea, spend money on this idea or not. That type of thing. Things I'm thinking more in that line about sort of general, because the engagement is there, wanting things to work well and then being prepared to come up with ideas, getting those sort of ideas out of people.
We have a system for that.
Okay, very good.
I don't know if it's a good one, but we have a system which is idea generation system. Is just every employee have a KPI to deliver one idea per month at very minimum.
Oh, one idea per month per employee. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, but it's very common. This is not my merit. This is something we have in the group since a long time ago. So it's something I grew up with, let's say, professionally speaking. And so you kind of force yourself to, okay, this month I didn't present anything. What can it be? Look, we can improve this.
So in that sense, what is the output here? Because I've been in situations in organisations where we have offsites and we do a couple of days and we cover the walls with all of the sheets, with all the ideas on them. I mean, really incredible sessions, amazing sessions. And then nothing happens. Nothing happens. The management do nothing with the ideas. It's very frustrating.
Yes.
So if I'm producing 12 ideas a year. My colleagues are producing 12 ideas. There's 60 of us. I don't know the maths on that, but it's a big number. So what happens to those ideas? How are those ideas collected? How are those ideas treated? How are those ideas implemented so that people feel, okay, it's like mass on Sunday. I have to go to church and, have mass and I do it and that's it. Mandatory thing, but I'm not really listening to the sermon type of thing,
Yeah.
So how do you, got my iPhone out and I'm playing with the internet. So how do you actually make those ideas? How do you collect them? And then how do people know that you're taking them seriously and you're trying to pick them up and we can do this one, but we can't do this one? How are they evaluated?
Yeah, correct.
Where's the feedback component on this? Because it sounds great. When I hear it, I think, oh, that's great. But what does it mean?
So you touch the point. I mean, the big risk is if you don't execute it properly, you will generate frustration, and you lose engagement, and then next time you try to do it better, it will be probably too late. Yes, the answer is yes. I don't know any other way to do it than there is a committee, of people. They are not dedicated to that, but they have the responsibility. They are accountable for, hey, we need to go through the screening of the ideas, decided which one is implemented or not. And they have the responsibility, because there is a part in the idea generation, the paper, where you accept it or reject it. When you reject it, you explain why. And you make sure that the person who...
So get the feedback.
They get the feedback.
That's
Otherwise, it won't work. And still, it's not perfect because, of course, the feedback, they might receive a paper and say, but they didn't understand it, or I disagree,
I disagree.
So
my idea was great. What's wrong with you,
But at very least, they need to get the feedback. And ideally, they need to talk with the person, hey, good idea, blah, blah. So for that, there is no other way than having enough number of people managing this, maybe by departments.
But at least you have a nice system for it. That's good to hear that. And what about trust? What have you found works well in building trust in Japan?
I think I was not ready for this question, but I think from my perspective, the best way to get trust is to deliver trust.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does delivering
it means
trust
mean? My own experience, trust is something Japanese people value very much. So by definition, you cannot make any single mistake. But by definition, when you become trustworthy, when you say, you can count on me, I will take care of this, and you do it, or this is the right direction we have to go, and you deliver it. That's how you build trust. At some point, you don't need to explain. You say, okay, Alex, tell me, and we will follow.
And that means for you as a leader, you're making commitments to people, and you're following through on the commitment, and you're showing people, I heard you, I've done this, I either could do it, couldn't do it, doesn't matter. You're giving some feedback on that, and you're demonstrating that you walk the talk, your word is your bond type of thing. Is that the type of thing we're talking about?
Yes, that's the type of thing. Constantly, and extremely important, because there is certain pride also in Japanese. I mean, at some point, if you don't do it, I think it's very easy to lose the trust. So you cannot allow yourself to deviate from. I don't know. I don't have a better answer than that. This is how I feel it works. I don't think there is any other way around. They are very factual people. They know what you have said, and what you have delivered. And let's say if there is a minimum deviation, at least they need to understand. You need to spend enough time explaining, look, this is what I can deliver for this reason. Still, give me time, and then I will go back to, in everything. To give you very simple examples, I recruited people in Japan, Japanese, with a promise to send them overseas, because I did understand that was part of the appealing for them, being part of an international group that will give them the opportunity to move at some point. And it's a difficult bet, because first, you don't know if they will accept it somewhere. And second, you want this guy for you, right? But at some point, you need to make this deal and say, look, I tell you, in less than 3 years, if you're in North America, I find a position for you in North America. And so far, I never failed in any of these. They talk to each other. At some point, they know. So it's very easy. You have built the trust. You can just keep on running.
Transparency is there. They can see what's going on. And what about culture? Because the organization has a culture, and you have a headquarter culture, and then you have an office culture in the branches, and then you have Japanese culture. So when you moved up to the presidency, you probably, I'm guessing, wanted to have your version of how the organization should be and run and look, and that means you're creating a culture, your version of the culture within the umbrella of the corporate culture. So what things have you found worked well in building a culture?
That's even more difficult, this one. I think we are touching back the same points we discussed before, which is everything is about having a vision first, making sure the vision is understood.
How do you do that? How do you make sure the vision is understood? Now, I say that because we're a training company, and we go into organizations, we do middle management training, and often they have on the wall, vision, mission, values, the whole thing, right? Take it off the wall, turn it around, face the wall, and you ask 30 people who are leaders, middle management leaders, what's the vision of this company? No one can answer you. What's the mission of this company? No one can answer you. Out of 30 people, usually 5 values, they get 2 or 3 max. No one ever gets the full 5. So you think to yourself, the president and the executive team are sitting in some higher floor, no doubt, with a better office, imagining that their direction is understood and the strategy and the values, and we're all aligned and moving forward seamlessly, it's all good. But at the engine room level, I found big disconnect. So when you talk about that, how do you make sure that actually it is understood as opposed to you think it's understood?
Very good point. But my first answer is, it's our job. It's my job is to make sure the vision is cascaded and understood, period. I mean, this is part of the job, let's say. Then we can discuss how to do it better. These informative sessions I mentioned about is something we do like a clock, To answer to your question, often before the informative session, we send a survey about which topics you want to be talking in the informative session, which points were not clear from the previous one. So this already gives you some information. When you are preparing the content, you already have the result of the survey telling you, I don't know what we are doing in sustainability, everybody's talking about that, I don't get it, or I don't know. What is the strategy with Japanese? When through those questions, you are able to assess. I think that's not well understood, This is one way. I mean, first thing, helping, which is asking them directly, what do you want to talk about? And second is, I don't present the informative session, the town hall by myself, everything. So I always pick guys from every function, and I try to rotate them. So by doing that, they have no choice. It's like, I'm going to talk about the industrial efficiency. I better know better what my boss was telling me before, that I kind of get it, but not in order to pitch it, no? So by doing that, you are creating this kind of. So at the end, everybody knows what they are talking about because they have to talk about, and their question about directly is not me. They are in the,
they have to answer
the
the questions, right?
Yeah. So that's the only two things.
Well. So we were talking about culture. So are there any other things around culture that you found work well in creating a culture and driving a culture in Japan?
Driving a culture. I mean, maybe the good debate would be what driving a culture would be, because from my perspective, there is a company culture, and then there is a country culture, and somehow both have to cohabitate. So there is no need to push things left or right. You need to make sure they cohabitate. I often say that part of my value here, part of my purpose here, is to be the cushion before a preset culture belonging to the country and a corporate culture belonging. So I try to use myself at this cushion, this resort between them and let's say the headquarters. Rather than changing them, and definitely not try to change headquarters, but just making one side understand the other, and be there for when it's the let's say the pain points come, to be you the one receiving the pressure, not them. And that's until I'm able to develop a 100% pure Japanese guy who is already able to do the same, on my behalf, which will happen at some point.
And so, if you were going to give some advice to someone who is being sent to Japan, they don't speak Japanese, they don't know Japan. They're just, okay, you go to Tokyo, run the operation in Japan. What would be some advice you'd give them?
The first advice, I will give it not to him. I will give it to the person who is sending him.
The person who's sending that person, or him or her, we should probably be him or her there,
Absolutely.
I guess, yeah.
Absolutely. The person who is sending him or her, that's the first person I would talk with. And my advice would be, do not make the mistake all the technical companies we make. Do not send an expert on the technology or on the industry. Choose the person by the soft skills. The person you consider more likable to be able to blend in this culture, to be able, which is often more business-related people, or pre-exposed to Asia, if not Japan, etc., etc. Or you discover in their background that they have studied some Asian language, that gives you a hint, but prioritize that. And this is extremely something very brave to do, because people will not understand yet, and they will maybe blame you if the guy is not successful, but you have more chances to be successful rather than what I have seen many times, not in Japan, in Thailand, in China, everywhere, this kind of to make the cliche more, a German expert coming from engineering department, very competent guy, excellent talent, you send it to Thailand, this is going to be difficult. I mean, this guy will, because he's that's for me the first advice is stop doing that, guys, especially companies like mine, that we are very technically driven, engineering driven.
Yeah.
So you have very format engineers guy, extremely successful in their country of origin. This is not what you need. You need
But that's how we choose our leadership, isn't it? For most companies, it's the best accountant, the best engineer,
that's wrong.
the best IT person, or whatever it might be,
But
based
wrong.
on their functional capacity, becomes suddenly a leader of people, and they're a disaster because they don't have the skill set.
But this is the principle of Peter, no? It was old
you
already.
flip it, right? You're flipping it, saying start with the skill set of the, as you say, the soft skills, the EQ, right? EQ,
correct.
rather than the IQ, and get that right, and probably they'll be able to get the people behind them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. You're out of 150 odd interviews that I've done, you're the very first person who's ever mentioned that. So kudos to you. Well done.
I bring a little bit of value
well
there.
Done. You got that one. Well done.
No, but I suffer it in my.
You saw it.
I've seen many failures like this, and it's a pity. And it's. I understand it's difficult, but you have to be brave to understand. No, this person. Even though on the CV you don't understand why this is the person who is going to lead the country there. That would be the first, and then for the person, him or herself arriving, I mean, I would say, watch the podcast and go through everything we have said here.
Watch every episode of Japan's top business interviews. That's the first thing you should do. Good thinking.
I mean,
extremely good advice.
You need. The basics are you need to have a humble approach. Extremely humble approach. Listen more than talking in the beginning, and understand first, right? I mean, the bigger failures are the guys coming here thinking they know what they have to do and how they, bring in the model.
Let me fix Japan.
Yes, exactly.
I'll just come in and fix you.
I'm going to do the same that I did in Detroit, and it worked very well.
Right. Not going to work here. Yeah. What else? Other advice would you have? You got some excellent advice here, by the way.
Again, bringing a community is good. I mean, finding thanks to people like you, finding other professionals in the same situation and start by talking with them. I think this is a basic one, I'm not a good friend of bringing kind of instructions. More than that is the attitude, which is connected to what we said before. There's no book. It's more about the attitude you have to bring here. And the attitude is first, hey, I am in a different country, so first humble listening. Let's ask what is happening to my dear fellows before. This attitude is what will bring you to a successful place. There's no other way.
Should they learn Japanese?
I believe you should, yes.
Why is that?
By doing that, first you will show you care about the culture you're running with. From a pragmatical point of view, it will help you also to open doors that they will otherwise be shut. So it's a matter of showing some care to the culture you are in, and then there's a very pragmatic. And third, I think learning Japanese, the ratio between the investment, even though it's extremely musukashi, difficult language.
It is. I think so.
But I still believe the ratio of the effort you put and the benefit you get is very high. Why? Because they are very, very bad English speakers. Yes. And they remain one of the top economies in the world. So by definition, I didn't doubt. For me, it was like a no-brainer. You need to learn the language.
Right.
It will give you value in the market in the future, no matter where you are.
Actually, again, this is very fresh. No one's ever said to me, maybe someone did, but I can't remember that. Well, the first reason you've got to learn Japanese is because the Japanese English is terrible. And if you're going to communicate, you've got to work on yourself. So very interesting insight. So
you bring value for yourself as well. It's also
well, there's also, I guess, you're just living here, right? So you want to go shopping, you want to get on a train, you want to do anything. Tokyo.
And they respect you more.
Yeah.
In every country, I don't think the Japan is different on that. In every country, they will see you're speaking a little bit. So will be gentle. They like this guy, look this guy. He's trying to speak our language.
Did you learn any Korean, by the way, because the Korean grammatical structure and the Japanese grammatical structure are identical, basically. So if you've got a basic understanding of the Korean grammatical structure, just pour in a few Japanese words with a different pronunciation, and mentally it's probably going to be a bit closer. Did you find that was helpful?
Yeah, it was helpful. I mean, the structure, in my opinion, is very different. The alphabets are extremely different.
Well, the writing is Hangul is completely
Japanese,
different. Right? It's a
Korean
phonetic
was
system.
much easier to learn, but it helped me because many words are very similar, so it kind of connects with something, no? But also it's sometimes misleading. I mix both now. It's a bit
confuse them, right? Yeah.
But definitely, I believe it helps. Yeah.
So, what would be your definition of leadership?
For me, is that person that is there to inspire and to support the teams to excel. I just made it up. Maybe I will change my mind later, but this is
pretty good. I think it's pretty
how
good.
it
It sounds
feels.
pretty good to me. Yeah, to inspire the team to excel.
And support them to excel. Because inspiring is more about the vision, then you also have to support them. But the tricky part in this answer from mine is you are not in the picture. You are in the picture, they are them, no? And you are the guy who is both inspiring and helping them to excel. But
you're not the centerpiece.
yeah,
They are the centerpiece. Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Alejandro. It's been fantastic. And please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.